result driven versus process driven and how that relates to pressure. So when you guys are playing in your games or doing whatever, competing in any element, do you guys feel like when you guys are results driven, like you guys are like, hey, I need to get a hit here, I need to do whatever, you have more pressure on yourselves, or is that like actually help you?
For me at least, like when I press about something other than just getting a good pitch and hitting it hard, like when I have other thoughts in my head, it means I'm not present in the box. And when I'm not present in the box, like it's like the game speeds up, so like to like 1,000%. So yeah, when I'm thinking about like getting hit or like a result, like for me at least, the game gets really really fast and gets miserable. So like I just need like a clear head, I guess, with nothing in regards to like results.
Interesting. So, wrong one. So when you're focusing on results, the pressure comes, game speeds up.
Yes, and it's like sometimes like when you're doing really really well, it's like kind of like in slow motion, and the game never gets like that when you're result oriented. Like the game never gets in that like slow like, oh, I can actually count the spins on the ball right now.
So you feel when you're process oriented, the game actually slows up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it feels like I can swing at like 50%, and the ball will come off at 100%.
So you're definitely
instead of having to swing at like 100 to get it to come off 100 when I'm not. Like for me, all these things kind of tie in, like because mentally, like these I don't know.
No, I mean, to me that makes a lot of sense, and I love hearing other people talk about that, because when I played, the game was so fast because I needed to get 3 hits every time I swung a bat. Like I was like, oh, I gotta get a hit here, I gotta get a hit here, I gotta get a hit here. And when I scolded the ball at the shortstop, center fielder, or whatever, I was pissed off because he caught it and it was out. Instead of saying, dude, that was my job. My job is to be on time, get a good swing off, and I did it. I think if I played that way, I would have enjoyed the game of baseball a hell of a lot more. And what's interesting about our lives right now and where I'm at right now as an adult is I catch myself a lot of times worrying about the results. So, for example, I'm a business owner, and it's like, all right, well, if we don't have 150 members, then we're a failure. If we don't have 50 kids going D1, we're a failure, right? But it's so funny that you wind up getting caught. Like, you look at these other programs out there, how many Division I commits they have versus us, and so on and so forth. All these guys out there are putting their D1 commits. Your guys' names are probably all over the internet. People are taking credit for your success everywhere you go because everybody is so results-oriented. And to me, like, when I first started this, it was very similar. And then all of a sudden I started thinking, well, like, shit, this is exactly what it was like when I played the game of baseball. Like, I don't need to be results-oriented. I don't care if the kids are going D1, D3, whatever. Let me think about, like, what my process is. And then the byproduct of that process will be kids going D1, learning some cool shit. And Jordan, I know you doing a lot of, like, you're kind of fringing now on playing baseball, but also starting, I guess the real world adult life. Do you see that now as well? Like, any connections between playing and then, being an entrepreneur in a way,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, whenever I was playing, I always felt like a lot of pressure when I was focusing on like external things that I can't control. Like, are scouts going to be in the stands? Am I going to get good pitches to hit to impress somebody? And like, same thing with you. Like, if I hit a line drive to the center fielder and it was an out, I would throw my helmet and I would be very, like, especially earlier in my career, like I was very like upset at those things that I had no control over. And now I feel like I'm way more mature that I can go about like gameplay in a way that like makes me better, like off the field too. And I guess now like trying wanting to like start my own business and like whatever that business may be, or like whatever I'm going to do after baseball when I'm done. I feel like if I just stick to and having a goal is one thing, and like you always say, working backwards from that goal, and then developing a process that like you're gonna be proud of no matter if you reach that goal or not. And I think that's like one of like the key things that you've told me in the past is like that I try to stick with, because if I want to open my own business and start a breast cancer foundation, I never end up doing that. I'm 80 years old, and I at least tried, and I actually gave a shit along the way, then I'm gonna be proud of that. And like if I didn't make it to the MLB, or I never do, then I'm gonna still be proud of playing all different levels of college baseball, possible pro baseball, whatever. Like the process outweighs the results exponentially for me now. And I would say in the past 2 years, it has become that way.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, that's kind of how I ended the podcast. Yeah, fuck. The live stream last night about, never saving anything for the swim back. When we're like competing at our highest level and we're focused on our process, what winds up happening is you get lost in the process. Like the results kind of get blurred. You don't even like really focus on it. Like I said, I mean, in the business world, and again, I don't know how many viewers out there or have any concept of this, but like if you're solely focused on the process, all the money that comes to the bottom line, it winds up just being like kind of blurred. Like, yeah, it's awesome we focus on it, obviously, because we got to pay the rent and stuff, but you don't focus so heavily on it. I don't lose sleep over it like I used to. And it's so funny because, like I said, when I played baseball, that's exactly how, I mean, I can't tell you how many sleepless nights I had because I was focused solely on the results. Whereas if I was focused on the process and I just never held anything back and I failed, hell, that would have been okay with me. Which I guess definitely brings me to my last point, and because I've kept you guys here long enough, and I really appreciate you guys jumping on with me. But I hear a lot of people saying, like, I hear parents say this all the time, and it's supposed to be a positive thing, So I hear parents say, hey, man, what's the worst thing that happens? The worst thing that happens is you fail, right? And to me, and I know this sounds weird, I think that's such a weird thing to say, right? Because in my brain, I've literally canceled out, like, what failure even is. Because failure has an end time. So what's the worst thing that happens? You fail? Well, it's like, well, no, that's not the worst thing that happens because failure doesn't exist. It seems like the moment you put failure in your, like, brain and in your vernacular, you wind up, like, kind of convincing yourself that results kind of matter. You know what I mean? And it seems like, like the bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 2 outs. Dude, what's the worst thing that happens? You strike out? You fail? And it's like, well, like, dude, I'm not focused on my process then if I even have that in my head. Like, where do you guys think of that? That, like, if you even think about battling being afraid of failing. I know that sounds really weird, so maybe I got to put it in a different way. But if you even think that there is a battle between being afraid to fail and not afraid to fail, you're not, like, really focusing on a process. You're focusing on results. Does that make sense or no?
I agree. That, like, a large part of having a large part of, like, the anxiety that goes into baseball is, like, having a fear of failure. And I think that, like, if you do really want to, like, reach your probably, like the best version of yourself, you really have to find a way to, like, actively deal with it, because you're going to have that. Everyone has that, but you just have to find ways to deal with it, like, constructively, and, like, find a way to get it out of your head before you hit or pitch or something like that, just so you have, like, you're clear and you're completely present in the box. But it's just, like, finding ways to actively deal with it and not just hide it, or you'll be absolutely miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest parts of, like, growing and developing for me was, especially as a freshman, I'm a pretty competitive person, going out and trying to, prove myself, like, to everyone that's on the field that, like, yeah, if you give me the ball, like, I'm going to make it happen. Kind of, like, letting go of that, and not in, like, a selfish way, just focusing on, like, myself. Not really worrying about, like, all all the other things that go on, around me. That's been one of the biggest things that I've learned to deal with and learned to grow up from. Because there's definitely a lot of that goes on, not just in baseball, but everywhere, school, socially. If you just focus on it sounds cliche, but being your best self, good things will happen, I think, or they won't because life is
But I mean that's right. That's what focusing on the controllables really is, right? Like, hey, things shit's gonna happen. Shit's happening right now, and it's not good, and a lot of people are suffering, and it sucks. But it's generally a lot of it is outside of our control. So if you focus solely on everything outside of your control, what winds up happening is you wind up really, really stressing, really, really making life or the game, and what Anthony said, speed up on you. And you lose sight of a lot of things that are actually really important. So that was the one thing that I, and I know Jordan can definitely talk about this, but that I miss is, when you're in college or you're playing baseball, you're playing some sort of sport in a competitive environment, you're with your teammates, and these dudes wind up becoming, for 4 years, 3 years, whatever, becoming like your family. And if you're solely focused on batting .350, hitting a double, hitting a home run, you lose sight of that kind of camaraderie and a lot of that shit. And then all of a sudden you graduate, you stop playing, and you look back on it and you're like, man, I wasted a lot of time stressing over things that I couldn't control instead of focusing on a lot of good things that are going on. You know what I mean? And I think any former player will always talk about that is, dude, the one thing we all miss when you're done playing is the camaraderie with the dudes. You know what I mean? It's a rain delay and you throw the baseball to the other dugout and you write shit on the ball or whatever you do, Stupid stuff like that is the thing that you actually, when it's all over and it's all said and done, that's what you really miss about playing. And when you're focusing on results, batting .350, stressing over this, stressing over that, I think you lose sight a little bit about that. And again, I could be wrong, but that for me, that's what I did.
No, definitely. With all the stuff that's been going on, we're done for the season. And looking back, it's knowing man, I'm gonna have to wait an entire year to go on another bus trip and watch stupid movies on the bus and play Mafia and all the other stuff that goes with more. It's more than just playing baseball.